From this computer in her Oregon home, it's hard to believe that Jocelyn Zichterman may be the single greatest threat to thousands of churches many Americans have never heard of, the Independent Fundamental Baptist Churches, or IFB. After spending her entire life in the church, allegedly suffering physical and sexual abuse, Jocelyn refuses to call the IFB a church.
You are pretty clear and unequivocal that you think it's a cult.
A cult is a group of people who have rules and regulations that keep a high measure of control over the people within the group. 100%, that is a definition that fits the IFB.
In 2006, Jocelyn says she began the agonizing process of extracting herself and her family from the church.
And were you immediately shunned and ostracized for making this break?
We lost every family member, every friend we ever had. It's kind of like in one moment, So we went through just extreme deep grief.
Then in 2008, Jocelyn decided to transform her grief into healing, helping to create this website on Facebook called the Independent Fundamental Baptist Cult Survivors, hoping that other victims would come forward.
I had a decision to make that either I was going to kind of curl up in the corner and be quiet, or I was going to stand up for my family and tell the truth. Within 6 months, over 1,000 emails had come through my email box.
1,000?
Yes.
From people?
All over the country.
Who also claim to have been victims?
Absolutely. Of physical, sexual, spiritual abuse, anything you could possibly imagine.
All in the
Incest.
IFB church?
That's right.
But Pastor Brian Fuller says the IFB is not a cult.
There are independent fundamental Baptist churches that are highly controlling, that do some quite bozo things, but to broad brush them and to say, okay, this is what every independent fundamental Baptist church is, isn't fair-handed. If there are churches like that, obviously they need to own up to what they've done.
Is there a problem, though, with IFB churches and the abuse of children?
We happen to be fundamental. We believe in historic Christianity. That doesn't mean that we're part of an organization of hiding abuse.
The IFB culture goes unnoticed by the outside because we are trained to keep our mouths shut.
Camille Lewis grew up in an IFB church, taught at a Bible college that educates many IFB pastors, and has now joined the chorus of critics on Jocelyn's website.
A pastor would never say that he wants you to shut up. He would couch it by saying you're hurting the body of Christ when you talk, and that God will be disappointed. And they say this very ominously. They say it as if they are calling down fire upon you, and the threats work.
The IFB thinks that they're above the law. It's like they're their own policemen. They police themselves.
No one knows more about the hidden abuses within an IFB church than Rachel Griffith. Adopted into a wealthy IFB family near Chicago, by age 5 she was regularly abused by her father, who was an IFB church deacon and a Sunday school teacher.
He'd come in when I was sleeping, or he'd come in while I was bathing, and touch.
Would he say anything to you, or just...
You shouldn't be doing this, and I'm so sorry. There's times when he'd pray.
He would pray?
He would pray after it, I'm sorry, forgive us for the sin, and...
Forgive us?
Yeah.
When she finally confided in her church youth pastor, Edward Green, he provided little support.
Did he tell you that we should go to the police?
No.
Instead, Pastor Green also began sexually molesting her. He was 24 years old and married. Rachel was 14. The abuse went on for years.
I have a lot of guilt, though, because I feel like it was my fault, because I didn't stop it, because it was just a little easier to take than...
You were young. You were a girl.
And the IFB view on it was that you were doing adultery, even though you were 14, that I was part of the adultery, that I was sinning just as much as he was.
Rachel carried that guilt to an IFB college where she says she told the school that her father was molesting her. But again, no one called the police. Instead, she says IFB administrators told her to confront her family. In despair, Rachel attempted suicide.
I wanted to die.
In 2004, Rachel took an extraordinary step to break her silence, defy the IFB church, and tell police about her abuse. According to a police report, when detectives interviewed the senior pastor at her church, he told them that, quote, the church dealt with the issue and Pastor Green repented his sin.
cover up after cover up after cover up. That's their specialty in the IFB church.
Rachel's father, Frank Steima, and Pastor Green pleaded guilty to sexual assault and each served time in prison. Today they are both registered sex offenders. But for Rachel, justice will not be served until her IFB church accepts responsibility as well.
You have filed a civil lawsuit against your church and Pastor Green. Why did you decide to do that?
Because the church wasn't held accountable.
Wasn't held accountable for knowing about it and
Right.
not doing anything to stop
Right.
it?
Right. And that's my way of teaching them, because it's a terrible crime.
The church denies any wrongdoing.
And I think it's more prevalent than we think. I'm sure there's many more that are hidden.